Why should business be thinking about greener printing and copying?
Well, the obvious answer is because it can save money. Anything that reduces your bottom line really has to be good news in the current economy. But also, we know that organisations are now thinking about sustainability as a competitive differentiator. So being able to demonstrate that they've paid attention to those impacts is good for business. And thirdly, our customers tell us that it's actually good for morale and staff retention too.
So what are the environmental impacts?
There are three main impacts really to printing and copying. The first is energy consumption. The second is obviously paper. And the third impact, which is often overlooked, is the waste impact of the consumables that they use.
Yes. Yeah, interesting point. Can you tell us about your carbon reduction commitment?
Yeah, the carbon reduction commitment is a new piece of legislation which is being introduced from 2010, which will effectively put a cap and trade scheme in place for organisations that consume more than 6,000 megawatt hours of energy a year. That equates to an energy bill of about £500,000.
Right.
Organisations will be forced to bid for carbon credits within this scheme. They'll be making a pledge to cap their energy use at a certain level, and if they exceed that level, they'll be fined, and those fines will then be returned as incentives to the organisations that come in under. So there'll be financial incentives for organisations to reduce their energy consumption, and anything that can help them to meet those targets, again, will impact their bottom line positively.
Is that a European initiative?
It's a UK initiative.
Okay, interesting. And what can organisations do to reduce the power consumption of the equipment they use to print and to copy?
Well, the most simple way to reduce the consumption is simply to turn the devices off.
Right.
The Carbon Trust estimates that by turning devices off outside working hours, you can reduce the energy that they consume by 70%. And that means turning them off at the switch, because if you leave them plugged in and switched on at the wall, but switched off on the device, it will still consume a certain amount of power. The other thing that they can do is to invoke the sleep mode or power save mode, which is standard on pretty much all office equipment devices these days. And that could increase the saving up to about 95%. So you can see that there really is a massive reduction to be made just by turning things off. Then they can actually look at reducing the number of devices that they have around the organisation and using shared multifunctionals rather than dedicated single function devices, for example.
Absolutely. Now, obviously none of these things work without paper. Tell us about the issues surrounding paper.
Well, paper's a much bigger issue than people realise. In the UK, we consume around 120 billion sheets of paper a year. And research that we conducted earlier this year indicates that probably 2/3 of those sheets of paper are wasted.
Right.
Either because they're printed in error, things that are printed to proofread and then have to be reprinted again after they've been corrected, or else they're just left on the device and you forget to pick them up, and I'm sure we've all walked past devices at the end of the day and seen a big pile of paper on them. And the other thing is people printing things just to read them and then putting them straight in the recycling tray afterwards, and thinking that by doing that they've actually completely mitigated the impact of printing, which of course they haven't. So we really want people to pay attention to their paper use, and that should reduce consumption by up to 80 billion sheets a year.
Right, okay. So that'll have quite an impact on the world's forests then.
Yeah, I mean it's equivalent to about 5 million tonnes of waste every year that we could be saving just by better printing practice.
Now what happens to that waste? Does that actually get reused, or is that an issue again?
Well, some paper does get recycled, but even recycling paper consumes energy and water and oil. So you just can't assume that recycled paper has zero impact. It's not true.
So what general policies can a company put in place to make sure they reduce their paper wastage?
The thing that we recommend is to actually use the default settings of the devices to make best practice the norm. So, for example, there's no point buying a piece of equipment that's capable of double-sided printing if you leave the user to choose whether to print single-sided or double-sided. Because in the vast majority of cases, we're all busy people, we'll forget. So if you actually set the default to print double-sided, it's easy, and that really improves the adoption of those kind of policies.
Is it difficult to get employers actually engaged in programmes of this type?
No.
With things that are outside there?
No, absolutely not. You would be surprised. Again, this piece of research that we did earlier this year indicated that on the whole, employees feel that their personal level of engagement with environmental issues is greater than that of the companies that employ them. And the average sort of gap between personal commitment and perceived corporate commitment was about 23%.
Right.
So you've got this latent desire to be more sustainable, which I don't think most organisations are exploiting. People want direction from C-level. They want the policy to be set centrally. But once the policy is in place, they're generally very happy to comply. And our research indicated that if you have technology solutions in place to make best practice the default, only 7% of the people questioned felt that it would be difficult for them to comply with the policy.
So there's definitely a will already, really, amongst the rank and file, as we might say.
Yeah, we just need to tap into it.
So how do we get the managers a bit more, or the management level structure a bit more involved? It needs to come from them, doesn't it?
Yeah, it absolutely does. And again, I think that's where the bottom line benefits come into play. You know, most of this stuff is really just good housekeeping, good policy, and it can positively impact the bottom line. So even if you don't have a desire to do the right thing and save the planet, you can derive significant business benefits from adopting sustainable practice.
Right, okay. What about the consumable side of things?
Consumables are probably the biggest impact associated with office printing. And it's the Cartridge Recyclers Association estimate that says that 65 million printer cartridges are consumed every year in the UK. And 45 million of those end up in landfill. So it really is a big impact. Laser printing is an inherently wasteful technology. Everything that's mechanically clever about the printer is contained in the disposable cartridge.
Right.
And every time the toner runs out, you just throw it away. It's exactly like throwing away the engine of your car when all you've run out of is petrol.
Right.
So what Kyocera did was to develop a new technology which enables more of those disposable components to be built into the device and last for its lifetime. So greatly reducing the amount of waste that our products produce.
So as an organisation, how would you say Kyocera are different?
Because we've taken a waste reduction approach to reducing environmental impact, everyone in our industry is striving to reduce their energy consumption, look at technologies to help save paper like double-sided printing and end-up printing, and these are all really good things to do. But the best way to reduce your environmental impact is to design it out from the outset. And we believe that by taking a design-led approach which can reduce waste associated with printing by up to 90%, we can have a much bigger positive impact on the environment than a conventional laser printer could.
Very interesting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.